What's up, everybody? I know this is not our normal time today, and I'll go ahead and get started because we don't need to waste any more time because I don't have any more time to waste. So let's get into it today, guys. A lot going on in the market. This is a different time than I normally stream. I'm actually going on vacation. I've got a friend staying at the house, going to watch after the animals and stuff, and taking my fam on vacation, leaving right after this. My wife was like, Mike, hurry, hurry. We got to go. And I said, no, I got to do a live stream. I got to update everybody. So our schedule for live streams this week will be yesterday, Monday, Saturday, and Sunday. So I won't have anything during the week, but I will have clips. There's pre-recorded videos on YouTube for everybody. And so I'm just here to kind of give y'all my update in everything. As you can see, the banner, guys, Blofin is our official sponsor. If you're looking for a new exchange, I totally recommend them. I've actually been playing around with oil on Blofin, which is it's just so cool. You know, perps are so cool. But as always, guys, before we get into it, remember, I am not a financial advisor. Nothing I ever say is financial advice. And always do your own research. Now, let's get into it. Is this going to be a Black Monday? Well, it don't look like it so far. It looks a little rough, but Bitcoin's actually showing a lot of strength. Bittensor TAO is showing a lot of strength. And so I want to break down some of those altcoins. I want to get into what's going on with the macro a little bit, just to kind of get y'all lined up for the week. And I'll try to go live from vacation if I can. I'm going to be on a boat. Do not mug. Is that because of my mean thumbnail? Look, guys. Okay. When I first started making YouTube videos, you know, you go and you watch these different, look at thumbnails and people, and they're always like this, you know. And so I did that for a while. And like the worst part, like nothing will ruin your manhood more than standing in a room having your wife take pictures of you like this. You know, like, I mean, it's absolute worse. And then I start thinking, like, what are my kids going to think? Like, they're 5 and 6 now. What are they going to think when they grow up and their dad's like this, taking pictures for a thumbnail? So I was like, that's silly. I don't know why I'm doing that. So now I just got the mean mug. I got one with a smile too. We kind of rotate between them a little bit. But let's get started looking at the market. Overall, like I said, crypto's looking pretty good right now. Mug is Australian. It's like, what's it mean? Like when I hear of mug, that's like rob, like, you know, oh, you got mugged, something like that. But they also say mean mug, which is like, you know, something like that. But shout out to my Australian folks, man. Caleb and Brown, I knew some guys from Caleb and Brown that were from Australia and some more friends. I love everything about Australian people except for your time zone. It's like the worst time zone. It's so hard to meet with people from Australia. Like at 6 o'clock my night, it's like your morning or something. Like absolutely worst time zone. But other than that, absolutely love y'all. Love every single one of y'all. So that's amazing, guys. But yeah, so crypto's looking pretty good. I posted this last night, and I was joking a little bit. But not really. I was joking a little bit, but not too much. So the largest trade of your life is here with a short on oil. And then you see the second sentence. I was just joking. If oil hits 150, 200, do you think it stays there forever? If so, the global economy is ruined and your life will suck anyways. I'm short in oil with 90% of my net worth. So I was doing some math. It's not like 90, but I am planning on probably 30%. And like I said, guys, what I'm doing is not what you should do, right? I'm not a financial advisor. But here's my thought process behind it. If we look at oil, and I'll pull it up over here, you know, oil goes into absolutely everything, okay? Oil is used to transport everything. It's very important. Last night, it jumped up to 115. If we come over here and take a look at Blofin, it jumped up here to 118, 120. Now, I don't necessarily think the top is in, and I think we could go higher, especially if we got to keep an eye on this conflict. But it's so cool to be able to just go long or short on this website or this exchange. It's really cool, guys. So, like I said, if you happen to be looking for an exchange, they are the official stream sponsor of us. But if oil stays at hundreds of dollars a barrel for a long time, the global economy is ruined. Like, not saying it could never come back, but that is big time global recessionary type things. And not only is it recessionary and inflationary, it also drives you deeper into a recession, because then the Feds and all the central banks around the world are really in a tough position to be able to cut interest rates. They're not really in a position to be able to cut interest rates if inflation is high, unless they just want to say adios to their currency forever. And so I'm definitely looking at a position on right here for CL, the ticker CL, but it's tokenized oil. And so there's a couple reasons why I think this. It could also be done in the stock market. Like, there's multiple ways to do it. This didn't open last night in futures. It didn't open till 6 o'clock. This person said, yes, there's a new equilibrium being created. It needs to happen to make Venezuela oil profitable. DRAM high bandwidth memory also going through similar equilibrium changes. So I'm not exactly sure what that means. But overall, what this guy's saying is he thinks that they're wanting to raise the price of oil so that Venezuela can be profitable, because Venezuela, all their infrastructure is really old. So companies are going to have to go in there and, make investments. And if you look at the price of crude oil, in the United States, $65 is really the minimum for them to be able to get shale oil and be able to make a profit. And so, oil companies do well in these times when the supply and demand is constrained. But overall, if you go back all time and you look at any global conflict, like even a couple years ago, oil hit about 110, and then what? It came back down to 70. I just don't think it's going to be a very long-term thing for oil, and that's why I'm interested in, shorting eventually, right? It's difficult because you can get spikes and it can be volatile, but this was in futures 117, 150, 200. And what Iran, I think, wants to do is to make oil expensive. If you could do that, then there's a lot of global pressure to end the conflicts and things like that. There was something announced where the G7 countries are talking about releasing strategic reserves. And I think this is a bad idea. Anytime the government steps in and says, I'm from the government and I'm here to help, you better run. You better run. I know there may be some people around the world that live in, more socialist countries or something, but from my experience, this was Ronald Reagan that quoted that, every time the government gets involved with something, they screw it up, especially monetary stuff, things that have to do with money. And, these strategic reserves are for crises, for, very big problems, and doing it to lower the inflation and lower the price of gas and things like that. It's not a big needle mover. Like, if they do this, yes, it might lower it $20 a barrel. Inflation's still going to be up as a result of it still being, say, $90 a barrel. Gasoline at the pump will be like 20 or 30 cents cheaper. Big deal. Like, if you fill up 20 gallons of gas, that's $6. Like, okay, cool, $6, but it's not really changing anything, but it's potentially putting, your country's strategic reserves drained. But it's been interesting to see that with this conflict, we have had gold going down, silver going down, but Bitcoin looks pretty strong. And Bittensor TAO looks extremely strong. And Michael Saylor is continuing to buy BTC. Saylor has acquired 18,000 Bitcoin for 1.28 billion at 71K per Bitcoin. So he is averaging down, which is good. But the problem is, even with Bitcoin pumping, he's still underwater. Like, this dude paid, like, he's so bad. I made a tweet, I'll show y'all. But, it just got to 69K. When he announced that they made a purchase, it was at 67K, which means he had to have made his purchase right back here before it dropped. Like, it's just, I do not understand how he's so bad at making purchases. I really don't. You would think that they would have some kind of technical analysis person working with them to help with this. Like I said here, Saylor might be the worst Bitcoin buyer alive. The man buys BTC and is always down billions by the time he announces it. And so basically my thesis is that MicroStrategy should only buy capitulating bottoms, and they should only buy when they are dollar cost averaging down, not when they're dollar cost averaging up. I think that's a very, very silly way to go about it. If we come over here and take a look at the stock market, you'll know I've been showing y'all this rolling top. This is the NASDAQ. This is the Qs. I also was short this market on Friday, and I ended up closing out with a pretty good profit but I closed out Friday because, there's just so much uncertainty in the market, right? And so much can change over the weekend. Now, when I woke up, or last night before I went to bed, and I looked, it was actually up a lot. And meaning my short was up a lot, would have been up a lot. And yeah, so it was actually doing really good. I'm looking at this right now, and I'm kind of wanting to open a short because we filled this gap right here, and I'm interested in that. So I'm sorry. Give me just a second. And I need to get that on here that I can show y'all. But this will be via SQQ. Let me look. Because, yeah, we filled this gap right here, right? And so now if we wanted to go down, we could. I'll show y'all what I'm doing in just a second. Okay. I just put an order in. Yeah, I need to get that on here so I can show y'all. I'll explain to you what I just did. If I come right here and I go to SQQQ, so this is what I went to. And this is basically an inverse leveraged short for, so it just executed. Okay. So I'm in at 74.10. And I'll tell you why. It's because we filled this gap on the Qs. And this is not a position I want to open up long, keep open up very long. And I will stop loss at a certain point. But what's interesting about it is, like I said, we closed this gap on the Qs right here. So you could see that this was the difference in price between Friday's close and futures open. And if you look today, we went all the way up there. and close that out. So if basically my trade is hoping we get rejected, if we don't get rejected and we actually come up and, close above 600 pretty much, then I'll take a little loss on it and have a stop loss that way. I acquired 300 shares at 94, so about 22K, something like that. But it's leverage, just triple leverage, so it's around 60 something. And so that's what I'm looking at in terms of that. Sorry, like I said, I need to get my Robinhood account up on here so I can show y'all. But yeah, BTC's looking good. Let's go look at TAO. Wow, this looks good. I posted this over the weekend and somebody was talking mess like, oh man, TAO's going down. See you at 20, something like that. But this right here is looking like a beautiful, beautiful potential setup. We are on the hourly. So we've got about 8 hours worth of candles here. So if Bittensor TAO broke out of here, it could be on for a run. It could definitely be on for a run. If we take this potential bull flag breakout, that could take us up over 230 potentially, which would clear this level of resistance that we've had. Right there, around 215. So I'm watching this. Bittensor TAO is definitely the strongest chart in all of crypto right now. At least outside of BTC. TAO is the only project that has ran. And it's because of decentralized AI and the actual demand for decentralized AI. I think it's a big deal. Let's see how this is doing. 34.99. So like I said, my entry is 34.10 right there, which was because of the gap closure. So I would probably close this if it got, I don't know. I probably wouldn't close it, honestly. I probably just, if it broke out of this trend line, I would close it. If it just dropped down a little more, I'd probably just DCA into that position, because my thesis behind this has not changed. I still believe that this is a rolling top. I still believe we're going to go down to 550 on the Qs. And what could potentially happen and why I closed out on Friday was because if we potentially see this, like a shoot up to 608 and then come back down like this, and then even potentially do this, right? Hopefully. I don't know. And the reason, I'm not bearish on the market, anything like that. One, I have I left my job at the end of last year and I went cash in my 401k at around November. And so I've transferred that to like an IRA, an independent retirement account, which I'm really excited about because I get freedom in investments and things like that versus just having to do index funds. But, I'm needing to deploy that capital. And I would like to buy some Qs. I would like to buy a few companies. If we look over here, this is Microsoft. And this chart is going back a few years. And you could see this is the 200-week moving average. So this is the same support that we look at for Bitcoin, right? And you could see that typically marks the bottom. And this is Microsoft, and they've been sold off a lot for a couple of reasons, I think. There was a lot of, Epstein, Bill Gates connections, and also they're heavy software, and you get, fears about software companies and things like that. But I don't think Microsoft is one we have to worry about at all, like going away or anything like that. But this is what I was talking about earlier in terms of oil. It says the G7 countries are considering a joint release of oil from reserves, potentially as much as 400 million barrels as oil prices skyrocket. The release would be potentially coordinated by the International Energy Agency. 3 G7 countries, including the U.S., have showed interest. U.S. officials believe a joint release in the range of 300 to 400 mil barrels is appropriate. G7 countries hold 1.2 billion barrels of oil at this time. So that's why I don't think it's a good idea. I think that this amount of oil would last a few weeks, so it's more of a Band-Aid, and you're risking doing a Band-Aid that's not going to be long term while giving up 33% of your reserves. The only way this would even make any sense to me is if they knew that the conflict was going to be over in like a week, and this was a bridge gap to get over that little period of time. But I do think they're afraid of inflation. And so I want to pivot and come over here. My buddy, Anthony Pompliano, if y'all haven't seen the interview of me and Pomp, definitely go check it out. I've got it pinned right here, and I also have the YouTube video. But Pomp's a good guy, man. Some people say otherwise, but he's A1 in my book. I'll let y'all listen to this a little bit.
I'm an optimist. Right? I did the numbers go. I'm gonna put a 0 on it, right? Who's asking?
Is the Federal Reserve late to cut interest? But go listen to that whenever you have time. But he was on CNBC this morning. And let's take a listen to what he had to say.
Joining me now, Anthony Pompliano, founder and CEO of Professional Capital Management. On set, great to have you. So much to talk to you about. But of course, we are going to start with Bitcoin because it has been outperforming over the past week.
Well, I think there's a couple of different things, right? One is Bitcoin is a resilient asset that is really serving as global insurance. And so anytime that there's chaos in the world, there's going to be people who run to Bitcoin. Gold also serves as that use case. But I think that more and more people, especially as young people get a little bit older, they get a little bit more money, they start to go and they buy Bitcoin in times of uncertainty. And I think institutions also, what is misunderstood is that in the institutions, the young people 10 years ago, they're now rising to the role of the portfolio manager or the CIO. And so they also will start to continue to add Bitcoin into their portfolios as well.
That's an interesting take Pomp had because, all the people that were screaming Bitcoin 10 years ago that were 18 years old, 19 years old, now they're 30 years old. The boomers or the older generation starting to retire off, and the investment strategy is changing. And we're seeing some strength out of Bitcoin right now, like I said. And this same ideology of the type of investor rolling over and becoming powerful within these companies and things is the same reason I'm bullish on stocks such as Robinhood. Robinhood is, I have my IRA on there. I have an individual investment account, all kinds of stuff. I do crypto on there, everything, right? It's like my everything app. And I took that out of Charles Schwab and out of Fidelity. And so even though we see Fidelity, Charles Schwab, all of those companies being leading of assets under management right now. They host almost all the 401ks, all the retirement account, all the sticky liquidity, meaning that people put that money in and it stays there for 30 or 40 years. I think that's slowly going to be pivoting to things like Robinhood. And it all has to do with the change in the investor over time.
I think you see Bitcoin performing pretty well given what's happening right now.
And yet gold has not performed particularly well over the past, call it, week.
Well, if you think about what's gone on over the last year or so, pretty much everyone who's going to sell Bitcoin off of the highs has pretty much already sold, right? Everyone who's going to buy gold has pretty much bought. And so I think that you saw two assets that diverged, and these two assets, they serve as a store of value. And I know that the gold bugs have been doing their victory lap for the last year. I like gold. I don't hate gold in any way, but I do think that Bitcoin is a 10x better asset in terms of it is more divisible. It is more mobile. It is much more resilient than gold. And so I think that over time, what you're going to see is you're going to see more and more capital flow into Bitcoin. And look at the ETFs. What took gold's ETF 15 years to do, Bitcoin has done in less than 2. And so I think that just naturally you're seeing the rapid adoption of an asset. Now it is going to be volatile. And I think people love to celebrate when Bitcoin falls. It's down 50%. Well, if that was the bottom of the bear market is just a 50% drawdown, then it's the best performing bear market of all time in Bitcoin's history. And so let's see what happens.
Yeah. Now, I do not think it was the bottom, but it could be. It could be. We didn't even make it to the 200-week simple moving average yet. I think there's a lot of data showing us that we're going to 40, 42, something in that range. And if y'all want, I can break that down if you haven't seen it. My analysis on that.
Interesting. Do you think then, in light of that and what we're seeing with Operation Epic Fury, that Bitcoin is shifting gears in terms of how it's trading? Because the conversation had been that this is, you know, a risk-on asset. It's trading as such. It's a liquidity indicator. It's not a store of value. Do you think that this is an inflection point?
Well, I think there is a very, very big misunderstanding when it comes to what's happening in the global economy right now, and specifically with inflation domestically. If you look at inflation expectations, people have been saying that we were going to get sky-high inflation because of the tariffs. And I was very loud about the fact that we were not going to get that. The tariffs were going to be deflationary. Now, if you look over the last year or so, what we've seen is tariffs are deflationary, deportations are deflationary, AI is deflationary, and robotics are deflationary. And we see this happening throughout the economy. And so the big risk right now is still deflation, not inflation in the U.S. economy.
I think it's a great point. I really do. I think a lot of people aren't pricing in the deflationary properties of, you know, tariffs, less people going after goods because of the prices, robotics, artificial intelligence, making things more efficient, therefore making things cheaper. I think it's a very solid point that he had. Who was he talking to? Morgan, CNBC anchor, mom and wife, one-time singer, anthropology enthusiast, huge foodie. Huh. Let's see what CT is talking about, guys. Open Door. Is anyone here into Open Door? Open Door is an interesting one. And Eric has some pretty bullish price predictions for it. I think what is it? 8 months ago, I said Open could go to 82 by 2028. Now I think I'm being too conservative. His price predictions, I think, he posted them somewhere. But this guy called Carvana. Okay. He called Carvana and it did, you know, hundreds of multiples if we come take a look. I don't think they have it on there yet, but we could get it there. It's not a problem. They can add anything. So if we take a look at Open Door, this is basically a company that is real estate, but their biggest part of their model, so they buy homes, they sell homes. It's all on the phone, cutting out the middleman. That's a big part of it. However, they're also very big into financing rates and things like that. This is the level. It's been a while since I marked down this chart, but you could see that it's currently in the golden pocket, or that's where it was. It's where it found support at. But unless it can get over this 0.5 fib level, I think we're going to the 786, which is 276, which would be where I would be interested. But they have a new CEO named Kaz, and he's got a very interesting pay structure. I think his salary is $1. And then he has incentives that get him those options. Yeah, Kaz actually owns 83.5 million shares in Open, but they're reserved for him. So you can see that he gets his stock in these price increments. So when the stock hits these levels, he would get it. 9, 13, 17, 21, 25, 29, and 33 is where he gets his stock at. And so he's incentivized for a bare minimum to get this a 2x, you know, to $9. And that's like bare minimum. You know, obviously he's going to want to try to get all of it. And so the company just has to be more profitable. But I really like Open Door. I'm all a part of this next generation of businesses, you know. Oh, Fidelity, investing in Fidelity? No, Robinhood. I like that. That's the next, you know, the next wave. Gold? Oh my gosh, I'm going to buy gold and hoard it? No. You know, I'm buy Bitcoin. That's what I'm going to do. Oh, I want to go through a traditional realtor and all that. No, I don't. I want to use Open Door. I want to use something like that. And so this next generation of businesses of the world, how the world and finance come together, all powered on a smartphone, is what I'm all about. This company currently has a market cap of 4.64 billion. You know, if we look at, let's look at real estate companies, P to E. Oh. Okay. Open Door. Type all kinds of crap. Let's look at this. Open Door versus SoFi. Okay, so 5 bill market cap, SoFi 16, computer 32. Those have dividends, P to E ratio. So look, once this becomes profitable, look at how, you know, explosive these P to E ratios are. So Open Door's losing money right now. But if we take a look, what is this price book? You know, if they can turn this to start making money, I mean, look at this. Their gross revenue is more than SoFi. So if they can get that down, I think Eric's onto something. Open Door could be massive. It's definitely going to be a part of my portfolio. Definitely. Let's take a look at oil. So crazy. You can trade oil here. You know, the investment opportunities have just opened up for so many people, you know, whether you're talking about perps and being able to long and short oil, or whether you're talking about, you know, everyday investors easily being able to buy options or short ETFs or anything, leveraged ETFs, all from a smartphone. That's the next wave of the world of finance. Let's take a look at some liquidity. I know I'm kind of all over the place today, guys. Like I said, I'm trying to leave for vacation, but I just wanted to get y'all updated with everything. So we've got some liquidity pushing 70, but the bulk of the liquidity is down below right now. Liquidation liquidity. You know, I showed y'all before, but BTC basically is just mirroring the NASDAQ. So like if we come over here and look at the Qs, it just mirrors the Qs. You know, you can see this chart and the BTC chart look really the same. So Bitcoin just trades as a tech stock. I checked last night. Okay. Let's see here. And I appreciate y'all rocking with me today. I know it's a different time than I think the desire to make money overrides most political views. I do not invest in war stocks, though, even though bad for karma. Man, I'm just making money. I don't think it matters. I mean, somebody's going to make the money. Might as well be me. No, I would never do it, you know, start a conflict just for the sake of making money. But, I mean, if oil goes up, oil goes down, might as well trade it. Iranian launch intensity has collapsed 90% in drones and missiles. U.S. oil prices fall to $95 a barrel as the reversal accelerates, now just up 4% on the day. So that QQQ short, it was at, I'll show y'all. Like I said, I think I would just DCA into that because my thesis hasn't changed. But yeah, 94.10. This trend line right here, that would bring it down to 70.7. I probably wouldn't want to ride it all the way down. I'd probably rather get out and get back in. But I don't know. I don't really have any interest in cutting. I'd much rather just probably dollar cost average. My average was this right here, 71.50, and I sold around 73, 74, I think, on Friday. I'll let y'all know how this is too. I subscribed for us to this to their premium newsletter. It's like $140 a month or something. So I mean, it's not cheap, right? Like my little Discord's like $25 a month, right? This is $125 for a newsletter essentially. But I'll keep y'all updated with what it has and stuff, and we can review it on here and things like that. I plan on keeping it for a few months, see how it does. I really enjoy this page. They post a lot of really good stuff. Anthropic is suing the Trump administration now. President Trump says the U.S. is nowhere near sending troops into Iran. Okay, that's good. Yeah, this is really what we should look at, is what countries are dependent on oil that's going through the Strait of Hormuz, because it's not the United States, right? The United States right now, we have a lot of oil. Also, we have Venezuela's oil now. Not saying that's necessarily good or bad or right or wrong, but so which Asian countries are the most exposed to rising oil prices? Oil prices rising from 70 to 85 reduces Singapore's real GDP growth by 1.5 percentage points. Wow. A country that has 2.5 to 3% GDP is considered very strong. Okay. So gross domestic product. Okay. So how much productivity that the country is outputting. Oil just going from 70 to 85 reduces it by 1.5 points. Wow. I never experienced, I never imagined that. Meanwhile, China is the least exposed at minus 0.01%, as its oil imports are better diversified than its neighbors. Where does China get all of its oil from? Because they don't have any oil natively, I don't believe. Yeah, I agree with this. That's what I said the other day. You must be following me. It's all about China. Yeah, I agree 100%. That's what I agree with this comment. This gentleman said 100%. I said that, you know, none of this was about what we were told it's about. What happened in Venezuela, you know, wasn't because of what they said, right? Narcotics and all this. Sure, that's a valid reason maybe, right? But this is a big 4D chess game that we got going on right now. The war is not about that. It was about getting control of the oil. Iran, sure, it could be about some of these other things, but the main thing is being able to get leverage over China, okay? I showed the article that I wrote yesterday where, China's taken over all the manufacturing. You know, they're up to like 30-something% of their jobs are manufacturing jobs, where the United States in 1979 was at 20% of the jobs, 22% of the jobs, and now it's down to 8% of the jobs. And so this is definitely a play for that. And it's strategic that Venezuela happened first, you know, and so with all the conflict going on overseas, there's now a lot of newly found oil down in, you know, South America that's in the Western Hemisphere. And so, yeah, I agree with you 100%. Very smart. I don't believe everything that we're told. What's up? Where's Wally, my man? Venezuela and Bitcoin. Bitcoin is so stupid. Please show me value in something. That's complete speculation. Sure. I will. I'll show you. So if we, first off, complete speculation is a lot of assets. Okay. But if we take a look at Bitcoin, a lot of people say, oh, Bitcoin's backed by nothing. Okay. Which is inherently not true. Bitcoin is not backed by nothing. Okay. So let's start off with how Bitcoin is created. Bitcoin's proof of work. A lot of very, very heavy power consumption computers solve hash or algorithms essentially to mine a Bitcoin. That's what secures the network, okay, is hash rate and hashing. And so the cost to mine a Bitcoin right now is about $70,000, which is about the break-even price right now for BTC. So Bitcoin is a form of putting energy into something. Now we could talk about other cryptos being better, other cryptos being more efficient in it, but it's a way of, you know, consolidating energy, which right now is the world's most finite resource, right? Maybe not statistically. I actually think wood in the actual whole universe is one of the most scarce resources, but when you look at energy right now, that's the only thing these companies are struggling with. At the end of this year, we're going to be producing more artificial intelligence chips than we have the power to start up. So the number one currency, the only real currency in the world is energy. Energy, energy, energy. When you look at any of these other assets, fiat, any of these other forms of currency, they're not backed by anything. Bitcoin, on the other hand, the network, the actual monetary network, so think of that as the United States Federal Reserve, is actually backed by computing power. So yeah, it's definitely not backed by anything, or backed by nothing, I should say. It's backed by a lot of energy, and also it's just a finite resource. There's going to be 21 million Bitcoin in the max, and that's going to be done by 2140, year 2140. However, it's already about 95% mined. So for lack of, you know, getting too confusing, right now, every 10 minutes, 3.125 Bitcoin come out. In 3 years, that's going to be 1.7 Bitcoin. In 7 years, so 4 years after the next halving, it's going to be about 0.75 Bitcoin coming out every 10 minutes. So then we're going to be under 1 Bitcoin per block forever. And so for lack of getting too confusing, there's really no more inflation coming. And so you're at a fixed asset that is rendering the world's most scarce resource right now in electricity and turning it into a form of currency that cannot be shut off. It cannot be taken from somebody. You can self-custody it. I could go across the world with billions in Bitcoin, and I wouldn't even have to have a wallet on me. All I'd have to know is my seed phrase, my 16 words. What about silver, physical gold? I can tell you 100 reasons why that underpriced and a huge value. Well, here's the problem with silver. Here's the problem with gold and everything. You have to have an intermediary. You have to have a middleman. Okay. I mean, sure, you could sell it to me, I could sell it to you, but that's not how the world works today. Okay. One, if you wanted to take, say you had a little bit of wealth, you had $5 million in gold. You can't just take that overseas. You have to declare it. You have absolutely no privacy, anything with that. Also, if you went and I mean, there's countless videos on this. Yeah, silver shot up to what, $120? Nobody was buying it. You know, even the bullion stores online wouldn't buy it. You know, why would they buy it? It was all being manipulated. The reason silver and gold went up so much was not because of spot demand. It was because of derivative trading, perpetual trading on the stock market and things like that. You know, if you look at something like silver, what is it? XA. If you look at silver, silver went, if we come on the right here, and this is proof that it was derivative. Okay, so silver dropped in this amount of time about 37%. Do you really think 37% of the silver around the world, people were lined up at pawn shops to sell it right then? Like, no, it's all derivatives, you know? You have to flee your country and take 1 million. You take gold, and it'll take 12 words in my head. Who wants to go overseas? Well, it just depends where you are, right? It depends. You know, we're talking about global assets here. So if you're in the United States, maybe you don't. If you're in another country, maybe you do, you know? That's because of refineries. You know, what are you talking about? Sure, that's not market manipulation. But the fact is it can be manipulated. Like it's not spot pricing. You know, it's not real demand for the asset, right? Like it's not, sure there was people that were wanting to buy gold. Sure there was people that were wanting to buy silver, but it was manipulated down, yes, via derivatives, but it was manipulated up to be able to go down. Like it wasn't, you know, there's a lot of people holding the bag that, and I like silver. I like gold, but I don't think it's something that should be traded. I think it's a long-term preservation of wealth. I don't think it's really an investment or should be seen as an investment. It's an inflation hedge, essentially. But, you know, gold and silver, sure, there is a total amount of gold in the world, right? There's a finite supply in the world. But at the end of the day, if gold gets up to 10,000 an ounce, I guarantee you there's going to be a lot more gold coming onto the market. A lot of people that had it stored hasn't released it yet. Mining companies will ramp up, all that stuff. Wind moon, brother, we might have a little while. But I'll say this. I think we're closer to the bottom than we are the top. You're talking about no one can sell silver or gold right now. If you want to sell silver right now, you need to get your head examined. Just wait a couple years and silver will be unobtainable, and then people will be begging to buy silver was the next one. I mean, I don't think that's a good argument saying that, well, you couldn't sell it if you wanted to, but why would you want to sell it anyways? Like, you know, I'm in the business of making money and trading and stuff. And so I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you that silver is good or gold's good. I think silver is better than gold right now, especially because it has more use cases with AI data centers and everything like that. But in terms of, you know, trading and things like that, you know, unless we go into an apocalyptic world again, you know, I don't, you know, really see the reason as a trader to want to have it. Okay. You're talking to a guy that trades, right? And so, yeah, like I said, long-term preservation, like I don't think it's bad to have 10% of my portfolio in precious metals. And if I did that, I would want to have like physical bullion, physical coins, something like that. But as a trader, which I focus on heavily, I don't think it's a I just think Bitcoin's trash. See everyone buying it, but that doesn't mean it's good. So, you know, I would just be cautious of writing anything off that I would just be cautious of writing things off that you might not be knowledgeable on as being bad necessarily. You know, we were a long time ago. If you went back to the 90s and you talked to somebody and you said, hey, man, send me an email. They're going to say, why would I need an email? I've got this pen and paper right here and I'm going to slap a stamp on the top, you know, right of the envelope. Why would I need email? You know, it's just being late to a potential new technology. And Bitcoin in itself, okay, you could say good or bad, but blockchain technology is going to change the world. Everything is going to be tokenized. And so, you know, Bitcoin's just one asset, you know, one crypto. But when you take a look at it, it's a micro cap, like micro market cap in terms of assets. $1.3 trillion. That's nothing. You know, what's gold's market cap right now? 20? 35 trillion at 5,100 an ounce. So why is it based on speculation though? I told you, you know, it costs 70,000 to mine a Bitcoin. If it was speculation, there wouldn't be any cost associated with it, right? Like, so right there, that's a base cost. If it costs 70K to mine a Bitcoin, it's a base cost, you know. I think there's a reason that gold is important, you know. Silver is important, but I think the argument that it's pure speculation is truly a naive and just uninformed overall opinion on it. No disrespect. I mean, absolutely no disrespect by that. I love the conversation. A pair of lips will tell you anything. Yeah. I mean, I've seen Peter Schiff's lips saying, sell Bitcoin since it was 10K and it outperformed gold and silver multiple times over. Maybe the last 6 months, you know, he had his day, but you know, anything he said over the last, his entire career about Bitcoin had been extremely wrong. Aren't people storing data on BTC? Yeah, I mean, BTC has to be able to, you know, I've been very open about the potential problems with BTC, that we need to have more fees on mainnet. But yeah, I mean, you can definitely store data on Bitcoin. That's not what the core development team wants out of it, even though I think that was Satoshi's vision. Silver's been beating up the S&P, and you're telling me, dude, it is 100% outperformed silver. Like, it's not even a question as to if it's outperformed silver. Like, not even a question. Like, it is just not even a question. How far does this go back? Okay, if we go back to 2003, silver's up 2,700%, so a 28x. You know, I'm not one of these guys that's going to go back to, you know, when it was $0, even though that was 2011. But if we even just go back, and I'm giving up 33,000% here. 70,000. Like, it's not even a question that that since 2000 Bitcoin has drastically outperformed silver. Can I do that? I don't want NASDAQ. So this is Bitcoin over silver. And it's up only, which means that the only time silver has outperformed BTC is a little bit this year in 2018, a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here. But this right here is proof in the pudding that owning BTC, you would be up 10,000% versus being down. I think so, eventually. But like I said, BTC does have to be able to have more fees to maintain it. But hey, Silver, I really appreciate the conversation, man. I think it's good. I think that we should have these conversations. Bitcoin, you're looking at, I just said this. I just said that people like Peter Schiff, yes, the last 6 months, okay? I'm somebody that bought BTC sub 1,000, little bit of it. I'm somebody that then bought BTC at 13,000, 16,000. You know, keep a longer term outlook than the last 6 months, you know. But I would just be I appreciate the conversation too. Yeah, I love it, man. I would just be open to new technologies and stuff like that. New asset classes, new technology, things like that. Because like I said, Peter Schiff's been talking bad about Bitcoin a long time, and he finally had his day with gold. But, you know, and it's interesting to see what's happening with gold, right? Because if you're at a time that you think the world's going into chaos, why isn't it going up? And the truth is that what I think my truth is that the US dollar's getting stronger because it's the petrodollar and oil's going up. So like we can come over here and see if that's, I haven't looked at the DXY lately. Yeah. So, I mean, this is why gold's going down, because the dollar's going up. I mean, gold did good when fiat was going down or when the dollar was going down and stuff like that. Dixie was up this morning. Yeah, I'm looking at the daily. This is the daily chart right now. Here's resistance for it. But oil being expensive helps the dollar strength, because if oil doubles and countries' consumption stays the same, well, then the amount of dollars they need to buy that oil is double, which means they have to convert to dollars because of the petrodollar. How's Kaspa doing? Man, I'm waiting on VProgs and everything. Holding pretty steady. This is market cap right here. You know, and I've showed this before. A full fib extension, if the low is in, if we drop this down and found the low, a full fib extension would be to about 20 bill market cap, which is about over a 20x from here. Not printing money, but spending money. We haven't really added to the balance sheet. When's BTC a flight to safety? Yeah, I mean, right now, the world does not see it as a store of value. And that's just the truth. The world sees it as the NASDAQ. And because it trades just like the NASDAQ. It trades just like tech stocks. And so Bitcoin, nothing's going to move unless my short is bad. What I mean by that is if the Qs go up, Bitcoin's going to go up. If the Qs go down, Bitcoin's going to go down. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. It's how it moves. It's how it moves. And if we look at gold, gold really needs to hold this level. If gold don't hold this level, it's got a little ways to go. But it's not anything we haven't seen before with gold. If we come over here and look, you know, anytime there's this fear of collapse or anything like that, you see it. You see gold shoot up, you know, and here it dropped by about what, 50%. You know, here it was at 1,000. It dropped down to 600. This recent run that it had, like if everything calms down in the world and everything, I think we see a pretty big retrace, like to 3K or something on gold. In a world where gaslighting is more prevalent than ever, Bitcoin. So then why? You keep saying nothing's behind it. Why do people continually spend $70,000 to mine it? And that means each Bitcoin's backed by $70,000 worth of power, electricity. Good morning, brother. Sorry, man. I changed the time because I gotta go. 3K gold. Gold's at 5,100. Yeah, gold's at 5,100 right now. I think we see 3K gold. Yeah, the same way that, I mean, it's a commodity. It's how these things play. It's like, look, back here when it was at 600 and it ran to 2,000. Do you think anyone thought it was dropping 50% to 1,000? Just because people are buying something doesn't mean it's good. That is true. That is true. But I mean, I honestly think the same could be said with gold, that it's overvalued right now. It's there's really no real merit unless you think that the US dollar is going to zero, that gold is up, you know, this much. Like what deserves gold to be up 250%? You know, and it hit all the targets. You see this? This is basically a cup and handle. And if we measure that, take it to the breakout point, that was around 3,800. But yeah, And just so you know, gold going to 3,000. Gold going to 3,000 would not be bearish. I mean, it's normal for things to have retracements. That's why gold has had retracements every scenario. You said gold's overvalued. Bank of America just changed their forecast. Okay, so let's think about this. Why would Bank of America tell all the retail in the world, all the boomers, that they think it's going to 63,000? Because they want them to buy it. Because they want them to buy it. You know, I mean, you remember Bank of America is the same company that would not exist right now if they didn't get bailed out by the U.S. government in 2008. Yeah, I mean, literally, their company should not exist right now. They got bailed out by U.S. taxpayers. But guys, I got to cut the stream. I got to go out of town. I will be back on. I'm going to stream this Saturday and Sunday, and Monday we'll be back to 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, guys. I love you all. If you're looking for somewhere to trade, gold, crypto, oil, anything, guys, our stream sponsor is Blofin. I've had a pleasure working with them. I've also had a pleasure using the platform and everything. And I'll be making some trades over the weekend. I'll make sure to post everything on X, guys. But hey, I love you all. I will see you. Enjoy your family vacation. Thank you, Beeps. I love you, man. I'll see y'all later.